There needs to be a new saying for media companies that pretend to be woke, like, get woke in media and they're lying to their staff. They don't actually care about your politics and they will do anything in their power to maintain their power and not pay you what you're owed. Maybe that was a little too wordy. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. But here's the funny thing. Bernie Sanders is calling out Buzzfeed because they're not essentially giving in to the union. Uh-oh, Buzzfeed. Buzzfeed, I thought you were very woke, but you're running afoul of Mr. Sanders. We have a tweet from Bernie that reads, "Let's not forget the middle class was built by organized labor. I am very concerned to see that Buzzfeed still hasn't recognized the union formed by its newsroom employees. Our Workplace Democracy Act will put an end to the corporations getting away with these stalling tactics." And he links to a thread by Buzzfeed, which we're going to go into. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There are many different ways you can support: PayPal, cryptocurrency, physical address. But of course, as always, liking and commenting on the video is the best thing you can do. The engagement helps. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and share the link because that's the best thing you can do. BuzzFeed News tweeted this just the other day, and this is what Bernie Sanders was responding to. About a month ago, we shared news about progress towards recognition of our union, but since then, the company has dragged its feet and failed to address some of our most pressing concerns. It's now been 112 days since we went public. You know, let me say this. I am not the biggest fan of BuzzFeed News. I've actually defended them on many, many occasions, and I feel like they've let me down in many, many ways. But their union has a right to be recognized. I am fully in support of that. I am not a big fan of being in unions myself personally, but I do believe that if BuzzFeed workers are coming together and asking for a seat at the table, then BuzzFeed should be listening. But the real criticism here is not for the staffers who want to get paid what they're owed, pay what they deserve, or better perks. I certainly do think it's a bit misguided considering BuzzFeed just laid a bunch of people off, and they're probably going to lay people off again, regardless of what you do. But I will add, I love how BuzzFeed as a company is so woke and progressive, and then they, for 112 days, are not going to deal with this union or recognize them. That's not very woke of you, is it? They say, what's the holdup? Let me see if I can make this a little bigger, actually. Maybe not. There we go. BuzzFeed's management is proposing a bargaining unit that unfairly disenfranchises many of our colleagues and weakens our union. We won't stop fighting to create a strong union that reflects our newsroom. We were encouraged when BuzzFeed said they were open to a compromise that would include some of our colleagues on AM to DM and other shows produced by the news team. But weeks later, they still haven't provided any details on that proposal. They go on to say, another outstanding issue, BuzzFeed is trying to exclude reporters who have non-standard contracts, a position with no legal basis that unfairly denies union protections to a small number of colleagues. Well, it's not just BuzzFeed here. Vox is allegedly doing the same thing. Why is it that all these media companies want to claim that they're the wokest of woke, but they will do this in a heartbeat? The Vox union comes around, and now Vox all of a sudden is very interested in hiring part-time freelancers and contractors. Let's see what BuzzFeed goes on to say. When some reporters were asked to sign these contracts, the company's lawyer claimed they wouldn't affect anyone's ability to unionize. But now BuzzFeed wants to exclude these workers from the bargaining unit. This position is unacceptable. We're also concerned by BuzzFeed's attempts to exclude some editors with no direct reports or true managerial responsibilities. Their extremely conservative definition of who classifies as a manager does not reflect the realities of our newsroom. Never in my years would I have expected to hear someone from BuzzFeed refer to their company as conservative. Excuse me. But actually, you know what? I think we finally figured out what they think conservative means. Because clearly an actual conservative, these people, is far right. So I guess their managers not giving them the money they want makes them conservative. The company's lawyers have also insisted on a bargaining unit description that would define our union by a small number of titles, which we refuse to accept. Despite the company telling us they want to resolve the issue, we have made little progress. We need the company's representatives to fully engage in a good faith, detailed conversation and commit to solutions so that we can finish this recognition process and get to the real work, negotiating a collective bargaining agreement. Well, here's what I'll say. I want to be fair, okay? I always do. There are legitimate reasons why a company is going to, be in this position with a union. BuzzFeed doesn't have a lot of money. Like, they have a lot of money, but what I mean to say is they just laid a bunch of people off. So BuzzFeed's trying to make sure they're in the profitable, generating revenue and profitable so they can maintain themselves. Businesses are not always evil. They just want to survive. It would be better that everyone doesn't get the perk they want if it means they keep their jobs. So this is the inherent problem. But BuzzFeed, you gotta go to the table and have that conversation. Of course, what we're seeing now is posturing and politicking, excluding some people, including others, yada, 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 and now both are gonna go back and forth, but it is what it is. I will say, though, moving on from this story, there is a lot going on in media. So we have a little sprinkle on top for this story that I didn't mention in the beginning, but Vice.com editors exit as shakeup continues. Vice just got rid of some of its someone who was at the company for over a decade. So things are pretty bad for media. I went over this story from Vox, how they're shifting to part-time and freelance contractors, part-time and freelance, because, look, there's a lot of bad things that are happening. BuzzFeed's hurting. Bernie Sanders is calling them out. But we have the story from Vice, where they say the editor-in-chief the editor-in-chief and managing editor of Vice Media's website have both been let go. These people are fired. The new executive overseeing the media outlet's digital offerings said in an email to the staff on Tuesday, "In making changes to the organizational structure of the digital editorial group, we had to make difficult decisions. That means Jonathan Smith and Rachel Schlam are no longer with the company." Katie Drummond, who was named senior vice president for digital in March, wrote in an email obtained by the New York Times. I believe Vice is going to slowly move away from where they are now and focus more on... There was an article I read about Vice is moving towards programmatic revenue, which I believe means we're going to see less web-based, rage bait content and more programs for TV and things like that, because they have a cable contract and this content makes money for them. But I guess they got rid of their editor-in-chief. So across the board, we are seeing, strikeouts. Mr. Smith had been at Vice for a decade and was editor-in-chief for 3 years, according to his LinkedIn page. Ms. Schlam had been managing editor for less than a year. The departures followed the company's decision to shelve several websites under the Vice.com umbrella in a bid to streamline in a sea of red ink. Vice laid off 10% of its staff this year, and the Walt Disney Company, which owns a little more than a quarter of Vice, has said in securities filings over the past year that it has written down more than $500 million of its investment in the company. I will say, please bear with me. My God, I've been talking nonstop for like 7 hours because I did an interview and it went really long. And so I'm really trying. My throat is on fire. Last year, Nancy Dubik, Vice's chief executive, said Vice would be profitable by the next fiscal year despite a more challenging climate for digital media outlets as Facebook and Google increasingly dominate the online advertising market. Vice has lately focused on its studios division, which produces video content for its streaming sites, Vice News Tonight, a daily show on HBO, and its own cable channel, Viceland. Vice has also tried to reform its internal culture since a Times investigation in December 2017 revealed mistreatment of women at the company, with more than 24 women saying they experienced or witnessed misconduct there. A Vice spokeswoman did not reply to a request for comment. So here's what I'm trying to do. As my throat melts and my vocal cords are on fire. I've brought together a series of stories. We've got Bernie Sanders slamming BuzzFeed because BuzzFeed's playing politics. And let's see what some of the responses are. Looks like even Bill de Blasio is coming out. He said, memo to BuzzFeed News, New York City is a union town. You didn't just snub the union yesterday. You insulted all working New Yorkers. Get woke, go broke. Okay, BuzzFeed. You want to play this game? This is what you get. And I think it may be unfair. BuzzFeed's hurting, Vice is hurting, Vox is hurting, and they need to survive. But now they all have these unions popping up. Even Vox's union did a walkout just the other day. Let's see the latest tweet. They say, this is from a Vox union. I work for Vox Media Inc. and SB Nation. I'm a part of a movement to have a union contract to provide for the workers. Vox Union has been doing an outstanding job of representing us. I want to thank them for looking out for remote employees like me. What we're seeing is, it's like entropy, right? BuzzFeed, Vice, Vox, other companies, they're not doing so well. Some of them are selling off, many layoffs, and what happens then is when they lay people off, the staffers want contracts, they want protections. That's what they're saying. But you have to understand, the layoffs aren't because they hate you. It's because they're hurting and they may go out of business, and so they need to cut costs. In response to cost-cutting measures, the unions pop up demanding more. Well, all that's going to do is result in more and more layoffs, And then what do you have? No job? So when Mayor Bill de Blasio and Bernie Sanders start dragging Buzzfeed, I'm sure the managers at Buzzfeed are sweating bullets because they're getting intense pressure from their own side. And what can you do? If they do it wrong, everyone loses their jobs. If they do it right, they're the bad guys. And this is why it's so silly for the left to think everyone is evil, especially conservatives. I'm not going to call this union busting or anything like that, but listen, this is your side, and the left eats its own. So it's a you reap what you sow situation. I'll leave it there because I am struggling to talk, and I have to do one more video for you guys coming up very soon, and I will see you shortly.